For months, she barely noticed him. He was just another guy in the background, always available, always eager to please, yet invisible in her eyes. But in just 3 weeks, everything changed. Suddenly she sought his attention, wondering what had shifted. What did he do differently? He mastered the principles you're about to learn in this video. Too many men make the same mistake. They pour their energy into gifts, attention, and affection, believing that generosity alone will win a woman's heart. But attraction doesn't work that way. Women aren't drawn to effort alone. They respond to psychology, the subtle interplay of presence and absence, power and mystery. In this video, we'll break down a powerful blend of dark psychology and Stoic philosophy that will transform how women perceive you. These are not cheap tricks or manipulative games. They are fundamental truths about human nature that, once understood, will change how you approach relationships forever. But be warned, once you learn these principles, you'll never see attraction the same way again. Let's begin. Number 1. The art of scarcity. How to be a man women desire. Scarcity is a concept deeply embedded in human psychology. People naturally value what is rare and difficult to obtain, whether luxury goods, limited edition collectibles, or romantic partners. The more exclusive something appears, the more desirable it becomes. This principle is just as relevant in dating as in economics. When a man is too readily available, constantly seeking validation and making his entire world revolve around a woman, he loses his sense of intrigue and, ultimately, his value in her eyes. Many men unknowingly sabotage their desirability by always being on call. They reply to messages within seconds, cancel their plans, accommodate her schedule, and adjust their availability immediately. While these actions seem like demonstrations of devotion, they have the opposite effect. Whether consciously or subconsciously, women tend to be drawn to men who have a life of their own. Men who are not seeking validation through constant interaction, but rather men who hold their time in high regard and expect the same level of appreciation from others. The key to maintaining a sense of value in the dating world is understanding that attraction is not built through excessive availability, but exclusivity. When a woman senses that a man's time is abundant and easily accessible, it loses its perceived worth. Contrast this with the man who is focused on his career, his passions, and his self-improvement. He does not rush to respond to every text or drop everything to meet up at a moment's notice. Instead, he engages in meaningful pursuits, and as a result, his time is naturally limited. This creates a sense of mystery, intrigue, and attraction. A man who embodies scarcity does not do so by playing mind games or deliberately ignoring a woman to appear distant. Instead, he genuinely invests in himself, making his time valuable authentically. He doesn't need to pretend he's busy. His life is already fulfilling, which means that any time he does choose to spend with a woman is of high quality. This shift in mindset leads to a fundamental change in how he is perceived. Women naturally gravitate toward men who are selective with their time because it signals confidence, purpose, and self-respect. Consider the man who chased a woman for 6 months with little to no success. He was always available, constantly reaching out and making himself too predictable. She enjoyed his company but never truly felt a strong desire for him because there was no challenge, no sense of exclusivity. Then something changed. Instead of prioritizing her, he began focusing on his career, fitness, and hobbies. He stopped seeking her approval and started living for himself. As his focus shifted, so did her perception of him. She noticed his absence, felt the difference, and suddenly the dynamic changed. Instead of him chasing her, she began seeking his attention. The lesson here is clear. Attraction is built through quality, not quantity. Instead of bombarding a woman with constant attention, a man should focus on creating memorable and meaningful interactions. A well-planned, exceptional date once a week is far more effective than multiple uninspired meetups that blend. Women appreciate men who bring depth, excitement, and a sense of adventure into their lives. It's not about withholding affection or playing hard to get. It's about ensuring that every interaction is meaningful enough to leave a lasting impression. There is a reason why ancient philosophers and modern psychologists emphasize the importance of time. As Marcus Aurelius once said, a man's worth isn't measured by the time he gives to others, but by the quality of that time. This principle applies directly to relationships. A man who respects his time will naturally command the respect and admiration of others. When a woman senses that his attention is something to be earned rather than freely given, she will value it more. When applied correctly, scarcity is not a manipulative tactic. It reflects a man's priorities and self-worth. A man becomes naturally more desirable by focusing on personal growth, developing his skills, and engaging in fulfilling pursuits. Women are drawn to men who exude confidence and purpose, not those who cling desperately to their attention. The key to attraction is not to chase, but to create an engaging life that others naturally draw in. Number 2. The power of calculated indifference in attraction. Attraction is a paradoxical force that thrives on closeness, distance, certainty, and mystery. Men often make the mistake of over-investing emotionally in a woman too soon, placing their sense of happiness and self-worth in her hands. They wait anxiously for a text, analyze every word she says, and adjust their behavior to seek her approval. But true attraction isn't built on neediness. It flourishes in emotional independence. Women are naturally drawn to men who exude confidence, self-sufficiency, and a sense of purpose beyond the relationship. When a man masters this calculated indifference, he subtly communicates that his emotional well-being is not dependent on her reactions. This doesn't mean ignoring her or being cold. It means maintaining a balanced mindset where her attention is appreciated but not required. When a man masters this, he shifts the dynamic. Instead of chasing, he becomes the one being pursued. This principle aligns with an ancient understanding of human nature. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "He who is overly attached to his own life will be a slave to the emotions of others." In relationships, when a man ties his happiness to a woman's approval, he loses control of his emotions. He reacts instead of leading. He seeks validation instead of inspiring attraction. But when he cultivates emotional self-sufficiency, he reclaims his power. The key to implementing calculated indifference lies in balance. First, a man must develop genuine emotional self-sufficiency. His confidence, happiness, and purpose should not hinge on a single interaction or relationship. This mindset shift allows him to engage with women from a place of strength rather than need. Second, he can use the mirror response strategy, matching a woman's level of investment rather than overextending himself. If she responds briefly, he does the same. If she shows enthusiasm, he mirrors her energy. This prevents him from appearing too eager while maintaining natural reciprocity. To create deeper intrigue, a man can occasionally disrupt patterns by alternating between warmth and indifference. This unpredictability keeps a woman engaged. She won't feel complete certainty over his emotions. It introduces a subtle challenge, something that women, consciously or subconsciously, find compelling. A real-world example illustrates this principle in action. A man who once obsessed over every text from a woman he liked found himself constantly overanalyzing her responses, trying to craft the perfect reply. Frustrated with the emotional drain, he decided to shift his approach. He stopped waiting for her messages with bated breath, focused on his goals, and responded only when it felt natural. Within weeks, the dynamic changed. She began initiating contact more often, seeking his attention rather than the other way around. While this approach is practical, it must be used ethically. Indifference can be intoxicating because of the power it grants, but it should not be wielded manipulatively. The goal is not to play mind games or treat women with disregard. It is to cultivate genuine emotional independence that naturally enhances attraction. A man who practices calculated indifference with integrity will draw women toward him and build a foundation for healthier, more balanced relationships. Number 3. The art of creating perceived value in attraction. In human psychology, people value what they discover rather than what is openly presented to them. This principle is especially true in dating and attraction, where how a man presents himself can significantly influence how a woman perceives his worth. Many men make the mistake of believing that directly stating their achievements, listing their successes like a resume, or overtly showcasing their status will make them more appealing. However, this approach often backfires, making them seem self-absorbed rather than genuinely interesting. A man who constantly talks about his accomplishments may initially capture attention, but true lasting intrigue comes from gradually allowing someone to uncover his value. A woman is far more likely to appreciate a man's ambition when she notices his disciplined lifestyle than when he explicitly brags about his career. She will be drawn to his commitment if he is physically fit, when she sees him consistently making healthy choices, rather than when he boasts about his gym routine. By allowing success to reveal itself naturally, he cultivates an air of confidence and authenticity that makes him far more compelling. This philosophy aligns with a timeless principle in Stoic thought. Actual value is not in what a man says about himself, but in what he consistently demonstrates through his actions. A man's worth is not in his words, but in his ability to achieve, lead, and inspire. Marcus Aurelius understood this well when he reflected on the idea that a person's value is not in external validation, but in their inner strength and ability to accomplish meaningful goals. One of the most powerful ways to apply this concept in real life is through the art of unstated achievement. Instead of seeking validation through self-promotion, a man should focus on excelling quietly, allowing his results to speak louder than his words. If he receives a promotion, he doesn't need to announce it. Instead, if he has financial success, he does not need to flaunt his wealth. His composure, confidence, and lifestyle choices will naturally convey his status. Another practical approach is using what can be called the value vacuum. This occurs when people withhold information about themselves, subtly encouraging others to inquire. Instead of immediately telling someone what makes him interesting or accomplished, a man who cultivates a sense of mystery draws people in, compelling them to seek out the details independently. Like all people, women are naturally curious about what is not immediately revealed. When a man does not force his achievements into conversation, but allows them to surface organically, it creates an irresistible pull that makes others want to learn more about him. Consider the case of a self-made millionaire who, for years, struggled to find meaningful connections. He believed he would impress the people around him by openly discussing his wealth, expensive cars, and lavish lifestyle. However, his approach attracted attention but rarely led to deep, lasting interest. Women were momentarily intrigued, but they quickly lost interest because they saw him as someone who defined himself solely by his financial success. Then he changed his strategy. Instead of leading with his accomplishments, he focused on genuine curiosity about others. He asked meaningful questions, listened attentively, and let his character shine subtly. His wealth became something people discovered over time, rather than something he announced up front. As a result, people became even more fascinated with him, not just because of what he had, but because of how he carried himself. His perceived value skyrocketed because he no longer sought validation. He allowed others to recognize his worth naturally. This self-reinforcing cycle is what makes perceived value so powerful. The more a man cultivates an aura of quiet confidence and genuine depth, the more others treat him as someone of high value. In turn, their perception further reinforces his sense of worth, creating a dynamic where he no longer has to prove himself. His actions do it for him. Women are drawn to men who do not seek approval, but allow their qualities to be gradually uncovered. Ultimately, attraction is not about how much a man says, but how much he allows to be discovered. When he lets his success, confidence, and character speak for themselves, he naturally becomes someone worth knowing, someone whose value is perceived and deeply felt. Number 4. The art of creating emotional dependency in relationships. In relationships, attraction is not just about the immediate spark, it's about sustaining that connection over time. One overlooked aspect of maintaining a woman's emotional investment is the power of alternating presence and absence. Just as games keep players hooked by offering rewards intermittently, emotional bonds between two people are strengthened when moments of closeness are contrasted with periods of distance. When a woman is left to anticipate and long for your presence, the connection deepens in ways constant availability cannot replicate. Many men make the mistake of always being present, always being accessible, and always responding instantly. While this might seem like a sign of devotion, it can weaken a woman's emotional investment. Predictability removes excitement. If she knows that she can reach you at any time, there is no mystery, no longing, and no space for desire to build. When a man is too predictable, the relationship begins to feel stagnant. Emotional attraction thrives on contrast, on the highs and lows that create a dynamic experience rather than a static one. Imagine a bow that is always stretched. It will eventually break. The same principle applies to relationships. If there is no variation, no fluctuation between emotional highs and lows, the emotional tension that fuels attraction fades. This does not mean playing games or deliberately manipulating emotions, but rather understanding the natural rhythm of human connection. There must be moments where she feels your presence deeply, followed by moments where she notices your absence and craves the next interaction. One of the most effective ways to cultivate this dependency is by creating emotional peaks and valleys. When you are with her, be fully present. Engage in conversations that matter, make her laugh, share meaningful moments, and immerse yourselves in unique experiences. Make your time together so captivating that she feels a strong emotional high when you're around. Then, when you step away, allow for genuine space. Let her miss you. Let her feel the absence in a way that makes her yearn for the next interaction. This principle can be applied through emotional time dilation, the idea that time should feel fast when she's with you and slow when apart from you. When you are together, create an atmosphere where time seems to fly. This could be through deep discussions, exciting activities, or simply making her feel understood and emotionally connected. Then, when you are apart, allow the distance to stretch time by not constantly texting or being immediately available, she will notice the space you leave behind, and in that space, desire grows. Consider the case of a man who constantly texted his girlfriend throughout the day. She became accustomed to his presence in her messages, and eventually their conversations became routine. She no longer felt excitement when she saw his name appear on her screen. But something changed when he made a shift. When he began focusing on one deeply engaging conversation each evening, instead of scattered messages throughout the day, she started looking forward to their conversations. She began to anticipate them, to miss them, and when they finally spoke, the conversation had depth, meaning, and emotional impact. It is crucial to emphasize that this approach is not about manipulation. Ethical relationships are built on mutual respect and genuine care, not tactics designed to control or exploit emotions. The purpose of creating emotional dependency is not to make someone feel insecure or desperate, but to deepen the bond by allowing both partners to experience the natural ebb and flow of attraction. A relationship that lacks space for longing eventually loses its intensity. But when moments of closeness are balanced with moments of anticipation, the connection remains alive, vibrant, and emotionally charged. A man who understands this dynamic does not fear distance. He embraces it as part of deepening emotional investment. He knows that by being fully present with her and stepping away to allow for genuine space, he creates a relationship that never grows dull. Instead of constant availability diminishing the excitement, he will enable anticipation to build, making every moment together feel more meaningful. In the end, emotional dependency is not about how often you are in someone's presence, but about how deeply they feel your absence when you are gone. Number 5. Mastering the art of reading and leading psychological dynamics in relationships. Understanding women's psychology requires more than simply listening to their words. While words may carry meaning, genuine emotions are often revealed through actions, tone, and subtle cues that require deeper awareness. Many men take everything at face value, assuming that what a woman says is always a direct and literal reflection of her feelings. But women's emotions are fluid, layered, and often expressed indirectly. To connect with and lead a woman emotionally, a man must learn to read beyond surface-level communication and engage with the deeper psychological dynamics. One of the most effective techniques in understanding and influencing these dynamics is known as the echo method, a subtle but powerful way of mirroring a woman's emotional state and leading her into a desired frame of mind. This approach works because women, by nature, are highly attuned to emotional energy. If she is feeling anxious, uncertain, or emotionally distant, meeting her in that state and gently guiding her toward a more positive, engaging, and connected space will create a natural sense of harmony between you. For instance, imagine a scenario where a woman is withdrawn, giving short responses, and seems emotionally closed off. An ordinary mistake men make is becoming frustrated, withdrawing completely, or overly pressing her for reassurance. Instead, a man skilled in emotional leadership would acknowledge her emotional state, reflect it subtly, and shift the energy at the right moment. He might start with calmness, matching her slower pace, before gradually introducing humor, warmth, or a moment of shared connection to ease the tension. This creates an organic transition from detachment to engagement, where she naturally follows his lead rather than feeling forced into an emotional shift. Another essential psychological tool is strategic silence, a technique that allows space for emotional depth to develop while subtly creating intrigue. Many men mistakenly assume that the key to resolving an issue or deepening attraction is through excessive explanation or constant reassurance. But often, saying less holds far more power than saying more. Silence, when used correctly, is not about passive withdrawal, but about controlled restraint. When a woman expresses something dismissive, challenges a man's frame, or tests his emotional strength, the worst reaction is to become defensive or over-explain. Instead, a well-placed moment of silence forces her to sit with her own words, inviting curiosity and allowing emotional tension to build in a way that draws her in rather than pushing her away. Consider a real-life case study. After repeatedly engaging in back-and-forth debates with a woman he was interested in, a man decided to change his approach. Instead of reacting to her dismissive comments or justifying himself, he simply stopped engaging in that dynamic. He remained calm, unbothered, and allowed moments of silence to fill the space between them. At first, she seemed taken aback, but as the silence stretched, she leaned in. Her curiosity piqued, her engagement heightened. Suddenly, the emotional balance had shifted. Instead of pushing him away, she was drawn toward him, eager to re-establish the connection. This is the power of psychological awareness, of knowing when to lead, when to mirror, and when to hold back just enough to create an emotional pull. The truth is that attraction is not about constantly trying to prove yourself or reacting to every moment of uncertainty. It's about mastering the unspoken language of emotions, understanding what's beneath the surface, and leading interactions in a way that builds connection, intrigue, and deep emotional resonance. Number 6. The power of strategic silence in attraction and relationships. Silence is often misunderstood in human interactions, yet it is one of the most potent tools a man can use to create intrigue, respect, and attraction in his relationships. Many men believe they must keep conversations flowing, fill every pause, or be constantly available to maintain a woman's interest. Strategic silence is far more effective in deepening attraction than endless words. A well-placed pause, an intentional withdrawal, or a moment of quiet observation can profoundly shift the dynamics of attraction. At its core, silence creates an air of mystery. People are naturally drawn to those who do not reveal everything about themselves too quickly. A man who is comfortable with silence exudes confidence and self-betrayal, two traits that women find deeply attractive. When a man refrains from immediately responding to every question or comment, he gives himself an advantage. He appears more deliberate in his words, more in control of his emotions, and less dependent on external validation. Women, in turn, begin to feel a sense of curiosity and anticipation around them. There are three primary ways in which silence can be used effectively in attraction: response silence, present silence, and distance silence. Each serves a different purpose, but all work together to strengthen a man's ability to maintain respect and intrigue. Response silence is the art of delaying reactions. Many men feel compelled to answer every question or respond immediately in conversations, fearing that any communication gap might lead to a loss of interest. However, waiting before replying, especially in moments of emotional intensity, creates a sense of anticipation. A man who does not rush to respond shows that he is thoughtful, composed, and not easily rattled. Women find this kind of restraint incredibly appealing because it signals that he is in control of himself. Instead of reacting emotionally, he intentionally chooses his words, making every interaction more meaningful. Presence silence is about being physically present, but not always emotionally available. A unique power exists in simply existing in a space without demanding attention. A man who can sit silently, observe his surroundings, and allow others to come to him naturally becomes a magnet for intrigue. Women often test men by creating silence in conversations, waiting to see if they will become nervous or try too hard to fill the gap. A man who remains composed in these moments signals a level of confidence that stands out. He is not seeking validation, nor is he desperate to entertain. He is comfortable in his presence, which makes him more attractive. Distant silence, the most potent strategic silence, involves temporary withdrawal. In a world where constant availability is the norm, brief periods of absence can create an intense longing. When a man pulls back even slightly, he gives a woman space to reflect on her feelings toward him. She wonders where he is, what he is doing, and why he is not immediately accessible. This subtle sense of uncertainty triggers an emotional response that increases attraction. Women are naturally drawn to men who maintain independence and do not simultaneously give away their entire presence. One of the most compelling examples of the power of silence in attraction comes from a man who realized that he was always driving conversations, keeping interactions alive, and constantly reassuring the woman he was interested in. He decided to experiment by simply pulling back. He stopped filling every silence with words, stopped texting first all the time, and allowed moments of quiet to exist without rushing to break them. The result was almost immediate. She began to lean in, ask more questions, and actively seek his attention. The dynamic had shifted. Instead of chasing her, he had created a space where she was now pursuing him. Silence does not mean emotional unavailability or playing manipulative games. Instead, it is about demonstrating self-assurance and allowing natural attraction to develop without forcing it. A man who understands the power of strategic silence knows when to hold back, engage, and create a space where a woman can step forward independently. It is in that space, between words, between responses, between moments of connection, that true attraction flourishes. Number 7. The paradox of freedom. Why letting go makes her stay. Relationships often thrive on a delicate balance between closeness and independence. The more someone feels free to leave, the more they usually choose to stay. This paradox confuses many men who instinctively believe securing commitment requires control, persuasion, or even subtle pressure. However, genuine connection isn't built on restriction, but on the power of choice. One of the men's most common mistakes in relationships is trying to hold onto a woman too tightly. Whether constantly checking in, pressuring her for reassurance, or making her feel obligated to commit, this approach often backfires. The reason is simple. People resist what they feel forced into. A woman who senses that her autonomy is being threatened may start to pull away, not necessarily because she doesn't care, but because the pressure becomes suffocating. On the other hand, a man who understands the paradox of freedom wields a far greater power, the ability to inspire commitment through non-attachment. The ancient Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "The greatest power is the power to set others free." This principle holds immense truth in relationships. When a woman feels that she is with a man who does not demand her affection, who does not make his happiness solely dependent on her presence, she starts to value the relationship on a deeper level. Instead of feeling trapped, she begins to choose him voluntarily, over and over again. The key to implementing this mindset is guided freedom. It's not about acting indifferent or distant, but subtly leading while giving her space to make her own choices. Instead of asking, "Can I see you this weekend?" a question that implies neediness, you frame it as, "Are you free Friday or Tuesday?" This approach accomplishes two things. First, it shows confidence in your plans and lifestyle. Second, it gives her the power to choose, making her decision to spend time with you feel like her own. This is the foundation of what can be called the freedom bind. It's counterintuitive but remarkably effective. When you genuinely accept a woman's independence and stop trying to control the outcome, she naturally invests more in the relationship. When a man stops putting pressure on commitment, a woman often begins seeking it alone. Consider a case study of a man dating a woman with an intense fear of commitment. Initially, he constantly sought validation, asking where things were going and trying to define the relationship before she was ready. As a result, she withdrew, feeling like she was being forced into something she wasn't sure about. But then he changed his approach. He stopped seeking labels, stopped pressuring her, and instead focused on being present, confident, and emotionally self-sufficient. Over time, her fear of commitment diminished, and, instead of pulling away, she started initiating discussions about their future together. This shift happens because freedom removes resistance. A woman who doesn't feel caged can evaluate the relationship based on its value rather than external pressure. She stays not because she is obligated to, but because she genuinely wants to. At its core, attraction is not about convincing. It's about creating an environment where desire naturally flourishes. A man who understands this paradox doesn't fear letting go because he knows that authentic connection is built on choice, not control. Instead of chasing commitment, he becomes the kind of man a woman is eager to commit to, because she knows her freedom is never at risk with him. And just like that, everything changed. The same man who once blended into the background and poured all his energy into seeking her attention was now the one she couldn't stop thinking about. What shifted wasn't his looks, wealth, or even words. His understanding of attraction, mastery of presence, absence, and the psychology that truly captivates a woman's mind. I'm your husband. Most men believe that effort alone will win a woman over. They give endlessly, hoping their kindness and persistence will be enough. But attraction isn't about how much you do, but how you make her feel. Women respond not to desperation, but to confidence. Not to constant availability, but to a sense of mystery. Not to affection alone, but to the deeper psychological triggers that make a man impossible to forget. By now, you've seen how a blend of Stoic philosophy and psychological insight can shift how women perceive you. This isn't manipulation, it's a deeper understanding of human nature. The moment you stop chasing and start embodying the qualities that command respect and admiration, everything changes. Attraction is not about proving your worth, it's about knowing your worth and carrying yourself in a way that makes her recognize it too. We call it. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced this shift in attraction? What changes have you made that transform the way women respond to you? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this insight valuable, don't forget to subscribe. There's so much more to uncover, and I look forward to diving even more thoroughly in the following video.